Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati. Do something. Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschachade Satarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. This is the fanciest table I think I've ever seen. Very creative. Amongst many days in this festival-filled month, today's the disappearance day of Srila Madhvacarya. Tomorrow, disappearance day of Ramanujacharya, and then. So many. I borrowed a lot of this evening's presentation from our yatra to Udupi. So some of you were with us, some of you saw the recordings, and some of it's going to be repeat for those of you that already have seen. But because Brahma Madhvacarya Sampradaya, he's such an important person, no problem to hear it again. And I'll be honest, many of the things that you'll see this evening, they were refreshing my memory from what we discussed some months ago. So we'll start with the history of Udupi itself, and then a little bit about who is Madhvacarya, and we'll go from there. There's a history of Udupi where Parashuram has a big role to play in the formation of the land, because there's this nice description. After Parashuram completed his business, his traveling around the earth and chopping the miscreant kings, and many of them fled, he wanted to retire, according to the local history. And so he went to the shore of the sea, and he requested or commanded for some land where it could be very peaceful. And the arrangement was, with his chopper, his parashu, he was going to throw it out into the sea, and that much land would be given by the sea back. And so that's what he did. And this region that became then known as Malabar region is also the land where Parashuram resided. In this land, Parashuram Kshetra, there were two great acharyas. One of them was Madhvacarya, and the other was Shankaracharya. And they had a very significant role to play as they were near contemporaries. In Udupi, celebrated particularly as Udupi Krishna, along with the other 10 deities that were established in the area where Madhvacarya made as his headquarters. And celebrated also is this deity, the main deity that before Madhvacarya was born was the main deity for Udupi. In the local language, it's Odipu, and there's a meaning what those Sanskrit terms mean, but literally it means the city of the silver altar, or the silver seat or silver pedestal, because this deity, Ananteshwara deity, is situated on a silver platter, silver plate, a silver altar. And there's some history of how it got that name. On top of the silver pedestal or silver altar, there's the Ananteshwara deity. And we're going to hear a little bit of the history, how this silver pedestal or silver altar came into being. It had to do with a king in this area long, long ago. The king's name was Rama Bhoja, and he was the ruler in Parashuram Kshetra for quite some time. And he decided he wanted to expand his kingdom, and so he consulted the Brahmanas, and they suggested that he perform an Ashvamedha Yajna. Not only they suggested he perform an Ashvamedha Yajna, but as was the procedure, he, the king, was to plow the land where there was going to be a sacrifice, the Ashvamedha Yajna sacrifice was performed. And it was to the west side of a very ancient Lord Shiva temple. There's the deity of the Lord Shiva, deity shown with a crescent moon on his head. Chandra Mauleshwara Shiva. And because it was the custom, he was personally plowing that area chosen by the Brahmanas. And as he was doing like that, some great misfortune happened. Sometimes misfortune happens. And as he was plowing, preparing the ground for the yajna, the plow caught a snake and instantly the snake died. And that was a very auspicious sign to begin the sacred yajna. So he was in great anxiety at the very beginning of this auspicious event, and he considered it to be a very grave offense. So because he was in Parashuram Kshetra, and the place was just by the side of the Chandra Moleshwara deity, he offered prayers to both Lord Shiva and Parashuram, day and night, with the request how to relieve himself of the sin at the beginning of this creating auspiciousness. It was the opposite. So in his dream one night, both Parashuram and Lord Shiva came, and they gave an answer to his desire, how to become free from the sin of having killed the snake. And there were 3 parts. Build a silver pedestal and place it exactly at the center of where the sacrificial arena was to be. So he did all these things. Construct 4 temples of snakes. Interesting request. Naga, alias, around Udupi, not specifically around the yajna area. And then donate his weight in gold to pious and worthy persons. And so, although it was a dream, he accepted it, and he did all 3 of those things very quickly. In the local language, the scale for weighing his own weight is called the tulu. So he placed that silver pedestal, and as was told, and his weight, or on a balance, which is called the tulu, was given to the proper people. And so later, the place, the name changed, Tulavas, was because the tulu, he gave us weight in gold. And reciprocating with the instruction given to him, both Lord Shiva and Parashuram manifested themselves in this deity. We saw several photographs of, we'll see several more, Ananteshwara. Interesting. Like in Mayapur, there's Hari Hara Kshetra, where there's half Hari and half Hara. So this is both of them in one form, Parashuram and Lord Shiva. Very interesting deity. And in course of time, this deity became the center of life. In Udupi, here's a little map showing where the Tulu dynasty was situated. And, showing the pictures of the major cities are indicated in the map. The area, there's a long history which I left out, but the long history says that there were some Brahmanas from the north that, by arrangements, they migrated to this area. They were maintained by the king, and they were from a Bhagavad Sampradaya. And they had deep liking for Srimad Bhagavatam. In around the time of before Madhvacarya, Shankaracharya's influence had already spread, and the Brahmanas were somewhat influenced by Shankaracharya, but they made a strong commitment and liking for Srimad Bhagavatam, so it was a bit of a mix. And that's the Brahmanas, the Shivali Brahmanas, was from his father's family, in the family in which he was born, Madhvacarya. Now, most of what follows is Madhvacarya's life, because all of this is a little background on the history preceding him. There are two books. One of them was written by Trivikram Panditacharya. Trivikram Pandit was a nearby, highly learned, highly influential scholar in the Shankara line. And he and Madhvacarya had a extended multiple day discussion, debate. Trivikram had authored books in favor of Shankara's teachings. He became convinced by Madhvacarya's teachings and became one of his prominent disciples. Trivikram Panditacharya. Madhvacarya gave him instructions to compile certain literatures, which he did, and after his departure, he began this other book, Mani Manjari, which he didn't complete and gave to his son, Narayana Panditacharya, to do, and his personal biography or memoirs or something. He indicated this other very celebrated principal text about Madhvacarya's life, so Madhva Vijay, that his son was Narayana Panditacharya, was the principal author. Yeah, there's more to say, but that's okay. So we're now going forward on hearing from these two literatures about the life of Madhvacarya. And before he was born, this is a photograph of the Ananteshwara temple. A very interesting event took place. On the occasion of Makara Sankranti, there was a big festival at the temple. And many people came to the temple to see the deity at that auspicious time, etc. And suddenly, much to everyone's surprise, amongst the thousands of people, a very strange-looking man who looked like he was possessed, he climbed up the flagpole and started dancing and shouting. How did he dance and shout on top of a flagpole? It doesn't say. Hanging on with one hand and who knows what. And once he got everybody's attention, because it was really a scene, he then behaved quite normally again. And he made the following announcement, according to these biographies. Mukhya Pran, the incarnation of Lord Vayudev, the great devotee of Lord Vishnu, will appear here in Udupi in a very short time to smash all impersonalist philosophies and reestablish the loving service in full attributes to the personal form of Lord Vishnu. This devotee, it's foretelling Madhva's appearance, in case you didn't figure it out. The devotee himself is possessing 6 wonderful qualities. The opulences of Bhagavan, and who is none other than Bhagavan Vayu. No longer will any soft-hearted devotee have to hear that the Supreme Personality of Godhead be subjected to criticism and mundane views of being deaf, dumb, lifeless, limbless, formless, or who is covered by illusion, by Pashandi heretics propounding Nirvishesh philosophy. He got everybody's attention and made all this interesting philosophy. Mukhya Pran will appear amongst you, and you will fulfill your desires for real religion. You will all be satisfied, and a new, purified doctrine will be your solace. So these are largely, at least the Brahmana community, the Shivali Brahmanas, they're lovers of the Bhagavatam, but they were also influenced to some degree, doesn't give a description, by Shankara's teachings. So there are others who were just pained to see all of this going on. And so this is a little illustration of Madhvacarya's father. For the stately people, and in particular Madhvacarya, the prospective father of Madhva, this news was an assurance of better times to come, as they were eager for clarity on loving devotion to the Supreme. So the announcement, he's going to come. And then he comes. So his father was known by two different names. The residence of his father was some distance from Udupi. To get to Udupi from the place where his father lived took about 3 hours walking. No problem. And here's an interesting mountaintop. On top of the mountaintop, there's a deity of Durga. The deity of Durga was established by Parashuram to protect this area. We'll see the deity in a moment. So here's the long drive to get up to the top of this mountain. And Vimana Giri is called, or Kunjara Giri. And the area is Pajaka Kshetra. Pajaka Kshetra. We'll hear that name several times because that's where he was born. Madhvacarya is where his father lived. Here's the deity of Durga. And Madhvacarya, nice painting here, he was born to Narayana Bhatta. That was his father's name, also Madhvacarya. But Narayana Bhatta was his actual name, and Madhvacarya was his nickname. I'll let you figure out what Madhvacarya means. Geha means home. Madhya, in the middle. Madhvacarya, because he was in a row of houses and his house was in the middle, so they called him Madhvacarya. Or Narayana Bhatta. And his wife was Vedavati. Madhvacarya Bhatta. Narayana Bhatta. And he, the Narayana Bhatta or Madhvacarya Bhatta, had daughters who died early, but he had no son, and he was very eager to have a son. So, what did they do? This is a little bit about his father. From his childhood, he was very scholarly, born in a Brahmana family, having a liking for Srimad Bhagavatam, and he was always very eager to hear topics about Vishnu, Krishna, the avatar forms of the Lord, and he regularly went to Udupi to worship and offer prayers to Ananteshwara. They had their home deity, and the temple deity was important to him also. He was renowned for his recitation both of Bhagavatam and Mahabharata. Here's a little bit from these biographies. It said that he was so skilled in reciting Bhagavatam and Mahabharata that the demigods would descend from the heavenly planets to hear him speaking, and they would shower flowers from the sky. And his son, of course, Madhva, later, became a commentator on both the Bhagavatam and Mahabharata. Now, the Mahabharata commentary, maybe some of you heard, it's well known. Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnaya. Who here has heard of that book? One. Okay. You'll hear some more about it. In Madhvacarya's writings, later, he was the first amongst the principal acharyas to establish his commentary on Brahma Sutra or Vedanta Sutra by making references from Mahabharata and Srimad Bhagavatam. I mean, it would be natural, because Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary of Vedanta Sutra. So why not? But it was unusual because others would make their commentary from the Upanishads and the Shrutis, largely. But like father, like son. This is a photograph of their temple deity, their home deity, Ananta Padmanabha. So being sonless, he was anxious. He went every day, which is a few hours away each way, worshiping Lord Ananteshwara, making appeal that he could have a son, a qualified son. He did this for 12 years. 12 years. Every day, making prayers to Lord Ananteshwara. And after the 12th year, he and his wife decided they should perform Garbhadan Sanskar with the blessings of Lord Ananteshwara. They conceived a son. In this Madhva Vijay, it's described Lord Vayu, or as that proclamation was made, Mukhya Pran, entered the body of the wife in his partial aspect. So it's a big deal. It's a big factor in who is Madhvacarya. It often speaks of him simply as Vayu. And more specifically in this commentary, a partial aspect, an angsa of Vayu under the order of the Supreme Lord entered into Vedavati's womb. The comparison is made just as a king enters a decorated city. So also Mukhya Pran entered into her womb. There's a further detail that the initial conception was an associate of Kuvera. The soul was Mani Bhadra, an associate of Kuvera. But when it was time for the child to appear in the last stage of pregnancy, Vayu, the deity of the wind, entered Vedavati's womb, and Mani Bhadra moved out. Don't ask me how that happened. Just as wind entering an enclosed space can displace objects in that space. And so, shortly thereafter, the child took birth. He gives the date of his birth in the village of Pajaka Kshetra, 1238. He lived to be approximately 80 years of age. And when she was giving birth, her husband was sent to Ananteshwara temple offering prayers to the deity. Because they're exalted brahmanas, they did all the rituals that one is to perform on an occasion of birth. And he was given the name Vasudeva. And by horoscope and other means, they could understand he had many good qualities. So because the child was born, their understanding was by the mercy of the deity Ananteshwara, so they went to bring the child to the deity of Ananteshwara. There was some event along the way, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Skipping those details, they finally made it safely, and the child, new infant, was placed before the deity. What happened? Went backwards. Backwards. Okay. Yeah. There's many details about his growing up, which we're skipping. And because the child was a little rambunctious and precocious, the father wanted to get him trained because hopefully it would settle him. And so normally when a Brahmin boy reaches a certain age, in 8 years of age, he's given Upanayana. And because his son was exceptionally qualified, we're going to hear some of those details, he gave him his sacred thread early. And sacred thread means that a young boy begins his formal studies, right? And following the Upanayana, different rituals were performed according to the local custom. There's the father giving this Gayatri mantra. On that very day that he received Gayatri mantra, they buy this Durga temple that's on top of the hill. And when they passed by the Durga temple on the top of the hill, the little boy, Vasudeva, killed the giant serpent. And it's similar to what happened during Hanuman's time. It is said that an asura known as Maniman, who was a yaksha from the Mahabharata battle, who was killed by Bhima, wanted to get back at Bhima. He held a grudge. And since Vasudeva was an incarnation of Vayu, as was Bhima, the son of Vayu, the serpent was waiting, ready to pounce on Vasudeva. So he met this vicious serpent, and the serpent attacked him with poisonous fangs at 5 years of age. The onslaught was both quick and fierce, but Vasudeva was equal to the emergency. He's strong, like Bhima was very strong. Cool and courageous, he received the attack with perfect composure and crushed the serpent's hood with his powerful toe. So that's what's shown in the painting. There's Bhima, there's the little boy, and there's the serpent. And here's a painting of the same. And so his father came to know what happened. The serpent was attacking him in a big battle, and his son killed a giant serpent. And his mother was in some anxiety. Where's my son? Where's my son? So she called his name loud enough for him to hear. And so what did he do? He did the Hanuman. One giant jump. He was walking up the hill to get back to his home. He heard his mother calling, and he jumped and came in for a landing right in front of his mother. and said Haribol. So this commentary about his life, he had early Upanayana. He crushed this serpent that was killed by, there was a yaksha killed by Bhima, and he ended it with a big jump like Hanuman. So the painting, the illustration is showing, of course, there in the center, there's Madhvacarya, and each of these three, Madhvacarya, Bhima, and Hanuman, they're manifestations, one form or another, of Vayu. So there's this almost like synonymous identity that many draw. They're the same, just in different times and different circumstances. This, as you see on the sign here, Pajaka Kshetra, that's the place where he came in for a landing. And they have a little commemorative marking where he landed. And they built a temple there. So after Upanaya comes Gurukul, and the Gurukul that was selected for him to attend was a very celebrated person, a Gurukul teacher, a local school teacher, whose name was Totani Tilaya. And he had this name because he had some tota, he had a garden. And he used the garden for production for his family and for his students, etc. But he was a very respected teacher of children. His father was relieved because there's many things I left out, but he'd go wandering off and no one knew where he was for longest time, and he traveled for huge distances, and there's his father looking like for a needle in a haystack. And he found him in front of Ananteshwara temple, just offering prayers to Lord Ananteshwara. And he had many adventures in between. So his restless boy that now has a good teacher, and his father's very happy. And he had other Brahmin boys in the area to be with. And what do boys do? Sometimes wrestle. Sometimes. And guess who would win? Madhva. Very, very powerful, etc. Like Bhima, very, very powerful. Very, very powerful. And he was a voracious eater, and there's a whole story about how his sister, when the boy was hungry, she gave him horse pulses, which are indigestible, except unless you're a horse. And he ate the whole thing. He wanted more. Anyway, so he has characteristics like Bhima and Hanuman. Now, here's this 5-year-old Madhva, or Vasudev, misbehaving in the classroom because he would always run home to get something to eat right in the middle of class whenever he get the chance. And his teacher thought he wasn't doing any of his homework. So one day, his teacher became angry and chastised him. Why don't you study with your friends? Why are you so indifferent to your studies? And he said, I already learned all this. And so I'm completely up to date. So his teacher challenged him. Let me hear. So he not only told all the verses and all the lessons that had just learned, he told the ones they hadn't learned yet. Recited them all, and the teacher was a little surprised. Not only did he know the verses, but he pronounced them with such clarity and perfect pronunciation that the demigods in the sky wanted to know, who is this boy? And his teacher started to figure it out again and again and again. his student was such a highly learned person, they gave him a title, Anuman Tirtha, because when it came to explaining things, he always knew the exact verse to explain things, even if they hadn't studied it yet. There's an incident during his school days. One of his school friends had an acute headache, migraine headache. So Madhva blew in his ear. And not only the headache went away, but the boy was able to see his multiple past lives blowing in his ear. Vayu. An incredible young boy. When it came to the study of the Upanishads, his favorite Upanishad was the Aitareya Upanishad. This comes with his departure, pastime. It was his favorite Upanishad, and he and understand it and remember it and recite it perfectly, having heard it just once. And it said when it was time for his graduation from the Gurukul, his graduation gift, his dakshin, was to explain to his teacher the Upanishad. On graduation day, he entered school at 5, he graduated when he was 12. And the teacher got this very special benediction from his student. How through the teaching of Aitareya Upanishad, the devotion to the personality of Godhead is the path for achieving spiritual perfection. That's why he liked it so much. Now, lots of things happened after 12 because he left this world when he was 80. So many, many, many things happened. I'll just say them quickly and lightly without all the pictures. He had some affinity for renunciation. His father got a little nervous about that. And so his father placed this obstacle, that obstacle, the other obstacle. Nothing worked. His son was becoming more and more acute and intent on, and then he met the sannyas guru, and he was locked in. He wanted to take sannyas as a young boy at 12. And his father tried this, his father tried that. His father played the mother card. Excuse me. If your mother says okay, then okay. But she was already prompted, don't say okay. He said, his father said, if you take sannyas, I'll kill myself. And he took his upper garment, he made some kopans, he said, I challenge you, go ahead. He said, all right, you win. But if your mother says okay. So I went to his mother, and she said no. And he said, if you say no, that's okay. I won't violate your word, but I'll leave home and you'll never see me again. If I take sannyas, you'll at least see me again. But if you say no, I'm leaving home. And you'll never see me again. She said, okay, take sannyas. There's obstacles in life, right? Just yesterday, we did the Hanuman's obstacles, crossing the sea, and no, he didn't use his brute strength, except for the last two. He used his intelligence. So sometimes that's the path to go. That's what Madhvacarya did. And he accepted the order of sannyas. He's a young man. And he then began his preaching, and he was, one of his celebrated acts was he liked books, and he kept a library. There's two versions. The library burned in a fire. He made references from many scriptural texts that are not to be found anymore, but they're accepted because he's such an authority and had such a library that it's accepted. Everyone accepts. The other version is the Mayavadis sabotaged his library. Maybe they set it on fire or something. Anyway, a voracious reader. He had strength. It's described when he went to get verification of his conclusions of the scripture, he went to visit Vyas because he had a face-to-face discussion with Vyas. So how do you have a face-to-face discussion with Vyas? If you're Madhvacarya, you know how to do it. It's described in this lengthy biography. He did what Hanuman does. He started moving so quickly, the person that was accompanying him couldn't keep up. With leaps and bounds, he went to the place where we're going to be visiting, Badrinath. Oh, he went to Upper Badri, place where we're not going to go. The higher dimensional Badri, that is a whole description in this text of the higher dimensional space, and he went to the place where Vyas is today. And he came before Vyas in a wonderful exchange. It's all in this biography. And in short, Vyas confirmed all of what you've written is correct. Go into the world and present it. Because that was the purpose of his descent, was to counteract the impersonalism of Shankaracharya by the exact opposite. Kevala Advaita, the exact opposite, Dvaita. Kevala Dvaita. Kevala Advaita. Challenge. And so he became a very strong force, as one of the earlier slides, in this area, the Parashuram Kshetra area. Two great personalities appeared, each with their mandate from higher authorities, and each performing their mandate. And Madhvacarya was very prominent, even in the area. This Trivikram Panditacharya, the arrangement was by Shankaracharya in four directions. There were principal headquarters. Sringeri Math is like his headquarters, and then four principal maths in the four directions. And the one that was in his Madhva's vicinity, Trivikram Pandit Acharya, was in charge. And he became a disciple of Madhvacharya. Very powerful. And so, this is the final slide. This is the place and the year where Madhvacharya disappeared. So that it's a very amazing event, how this occurred. He understood that the biography describes his understanding of what he had accomplished, mission accomplished. And it lists what his missions were and what he had accomplished. So he was feeling it was time for his departure. The biography says then that Madhvacharya indicated as much in his Mahabharata commentary, that demigods, when they descend into this world, after they've accomplished the mission for the descent, they leave quickly. They don't linger. So the commentary on his life is indicating that was his plan. And so he went to the place that you see pictured here, within the Ananteshwara temple, one of his favorite places. He sat on a very simple seat, and he spoke on the Aitari Upanishad, his favorite Upanishad. And when he completed this message, the persons in the audience were stunned at the eloquence, and they began offering this praise and that praise and this praise and that praise and the other praise. Voices from the sky, the demigods are also offering their praises, and flowers started falling from the sky. And the flowers kept falling from the sky, and falling and falling and falling, and completely covered his body. So 2 of his principal disciples, when the flowers stopped falling from the sky, they went to remove the flowers. When they removed the flowers, he was gone. That was his disappearance pastime. And this is the place where it occurred. So a great contributor to the teachings of bhakti, the teachings of Vaishnavism, certainly someone who we're most indebted to, along with the Lord Brahma and along with Madhva, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's no need to go into it. There are many things that are so similar, and there are some other things in his principal teachings that leave you scratching your head. And I don't think I'm going to go into it because you'll be scratching your head instead of saying, wow, Madhvacarya ki jai. Recently, a question came up, and Madhvacarya to the rescue to answer the question. Somebody asked the question, I heard that the hunter who shot Krishna in the arrow, in the heel with an arrow, in his previous life, he was Vali. And he was getting back because Ramchandra shot Vali and killed him. So in his next life, he became Jara, the hunter, and shot Krishna in the heel and killed him from a heel wound. Is it true? So a little research, and it turns out Madhvacarya to the rescue. He didn't refer to this misleading information. Rather, he gave a very different explanation. That the person who was Jara, it's right in the Bhagavatam, 11th canto. Bhrigu, in this whole description in the 10th canto, where Bhrigu was on a mission to find out who is the greatest amongst the 3 deities, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. So when he kicked Vishnu in the chest, it was such a heinous sin that he had to take birth in his next life as a hunter. So who Jara was in his previous life was Bhrigu Muni, getting a reaction for the sin of kicking the Supreme Lord in the chest. So Krishna arranged to deliver the hunter, because when the hunter shot him with an arrow and hit him in the heel, it is said, according to Madhvacarya in his commentary on Mahabharata, that he appealed to Krishna for forgiveness when he realized it wasn't a deer, it looked like a deer. It wasn't a deer, it was Krishna. It shot him and so he begged forgiveness. Krishna gave us forgiveness. And he then returned to his previous, according to Mahabharata, the previous exalted position amongst the demigods, Bhrigu Muni. Anyway, did anyone here receive that little message that was supposed to have been sent out? You didn't get it? Who should I send it to so it can be circulated? There's two documents. Huh? You'll send it. Did you receive it? No. Oh. Okay. How do these personalities understand these things? They understand these things because the personality of Godhead discloses things. That is how we're to understand. These most qualified individuals have access to understandings that we don't have access to because they have a password. Their Krishna conscious password. And then understandings are imparted to them and they share those understandings because otherwise we're not going to know. And this statement that it was Vali, there is no get back position from Vali, because although he initially spoke like that to Ramachandra, how can you do this adharma? Ramachandra explained to him why it was the proper dharma, because of your cohabiting with another man's wife, what to speak of your brother's wife. It's punishable by death. And why did I do it? Because I'm the representative of the Ikshvaku line. And it's my duty to punish according to the codes of Dharma. And so you got the right punishment. And Vali acknowledged and begged forgiveness for his sin. So there wasn't any basis for people saying Vali got in a get-back mood and shot Krishna. So we'll send you those things. She'll send you those things. So Madhvacarya's disappearance. There's the dates, there's the place, there's the spectacular event covered in flowers, and then when the flowers were removed, so was he. Let's see if there's some discussion. Life of Madhvacarya in capsule form. Yes? It works.
Maharaj, this is sharing an observation. Wondered if you had a comment on it. That as I was looking at the dates of Madhvacharya's presence on this planet, and then tracing back to Shankaracharya was 700s to 800s AD. Then Ramanujacharya came from 1000 to 1100. Then Madhvacharya 1200, 1300, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yeah, they weren't contemporaries. My mistake.
And then Mahaprabhu 1400 to 1500.
Yes.
So this range of time between 700 AD to 1500 AD or so, these,
It's
just
a lot of time.
it seems short to me. Actually, I was thinking like we have these powerful acharyas that have come to establish, Buddhism lasted for a really long time. Then Shankaracharya, Ramanacharya, Madhvacarya, Mahaprabhu all came in quick succession. And just an observation from a time standpoint, and since Mahaprabhu's advent, we haven't really had that. Didn't need to, but I'm just saying that kind of acharya has not come to change the philosophy, so to speak. It's been Mahaprabhu's philosophy since then.
But they came to reassert it.
Reassert, yeah.
Because through passage of time, it became not only diminished, but distorted. Particularly, that was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's challenge. Apasampradayas.
Well, also maybe a question, Maharaj. So prior to Shankaracharya, what was the prominent philosophy through India that was
I don't know if there was a prominent. I guess you can just call it Hinduism, which could mean lots of different things. And over time, I'm sure it just also meant different things. But emphasis on observance of rituals, performance of Vedic sacrifices, undergoing some, just like here's for example, Vasant Panchami. So on Vasant Panchami, I was at Northeastern University, and there were 70 students, and what they did for Vasant Panchami was over on that side, in the space is called the sacred space. It's where all religious activities on campus, they give that space for them for their club activities. So they set up an altar for Saraswati. And flowers. They didn't do anything or sing anything or recite anything. At least when I was there, they didn't do that. But that's Vasant Panchami. That's what you do for Vasant Panchami. And I sent around a photograph of the deities of Radha Shyamasundar Vrindavan. And look closely and you see what Radharani has in her hand. It's the same instrument that Saraswati has, the goddess of learning, Saraswati. Because she's Radharani's expansion. And there's authorization in Chaitanya Charitamrita to say exactly that. The queens, I'm going away from your question, but I'm just enjoying another topic. The queens of Dwaraka, the gopis of Vrindavan, the goddesses of fortune in Vaikuntha realm, and all these different devis, Durga, etc., they're expansions of Radharani. So what was the religion, the predominant ism, their theology? Just rituals, as far as I know. Predominantly, just Vedic rituals. Now, what was the teaching that went along with it? I don't know, but my understanding, that without having researched this topic, is elevation to the heavenly planets. Do follow the Vedic codes as they understood the Vedic codes for the purpose of gaining piety, for the purpose of attaining heavenly destination. Predominantly. That doesn't mean there weren't Vaishnavas present, but predominantly. Yeah, go ahead.
Another question.
You go ahead. You have the microphone. Speak.
Another question, Maharaj, is so the story of Madhvacharya's dad, who was so enthralled and enamored by the message of the interesting person on the flag, in addition to his own preaching capabilities and speaking about the Bhagavatam, yet I find his attitude towards Madhvacharya's desire to take sannyas and actually make an impact on the world with his, which is spiritual quest, instructive as a parent to watch that you can be so enamored by a gift of someone who is spiritual, yet fall in the trap of a mundane view of your child. If you wanted to comment on that, Maharaj.
I think you did a good job. Knowledge alone is not enough. He had more than knowledge. He had bhakti. 12 years. Every day, 3 hours each direction. Offering the same prayer. It showed his feeling of dependence upon this form of Ananteshwara. Anyway, the commentary in this biography says that specifically. That was his mood. Now, back to the question is, with all of this credential, how could he be so attached to when his son, what's the purpose of sannyas? He would already shown his acumen from childhood. He has this exceptional strength of clarity and scriptural understanding, and that was what he wanted. But he's attached. So, goes to show you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So, Buddhism started as an offshoot of Hinduism. That's my understanding.
What is?
Buddhism.
I'm listening.
Started as an offshoot of Hinduism, the so-called Hinduism.
No. Why do you get that idea?
Originally, in the earlier times, the so-called Hinduism was there, right? Worship of all devatas and all that.
Yeah.
And
that was his question. Now you're answering his question.
No, I was thinking similar lines, but a little differently. So then Buddhism moved out of India. It went to other Asian countries.
No, it stayed in India too.
But now we don't have any Buddhists.
But you're doing history. Let's do the history again. The springboard that you were jumping on said Buddhism is derived from Hinduism, and I wanted you to explain. And now you're off in some other country, but let's just stay how it started. Where it started was in India, and the headquarters for teaching Buddhism was in India.
Yeah.
And it spread through India, not just outside of India.
Right. But anyway, the percentage of Buddhists in India at this time point is very minimal.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So then Shankaracharya came, and within a very short time, impersonalism was
Big time.
big time. And then Madhvacarya came, and he was able to completely subdue that.
Not completely subdue it, please.
To what extent?
Well, it was very prominent. It's still prominent.
Yeah, it is still there. Yeah, impersonalism is still there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It's not light, but still there. It's prominent.
So then other Vaishnava Acharyas, and of course Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and ultimately that this path of bhakti that is taught by Lord Chaitanya, we understand as the culmination of these Vaishnava teachings. And we are only at the very beginning of Kali Yuga, and there is a lot more time to go. So within a short time, all these things have changed so many times already.
Yes.
So is there anything in like Bhavishya Purana or some literature like that which predicts what will be the course of this, how to say this?
Well, the only reference I know, and I'm not, this is not an area that I know too much about, the 10,000 year figure. 10,000 out of 432 isn't really too much. So that answer your question?
That means kind of for 10,000 years chanting.
We have a good chance. The window closes. I mean, Vaishnavism is eternal, so it'll continue, but in prominence, it'll be less prominent.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Guru Maharaj, my question pertains to Upanayana. So we understand the importance of samskaras, but how prominent is samskaras and Upanayana, specifically Upanayana, within the context of Gaudiya Vaishnava?
I guess my answer is, it depends. In other words, in ISKCON, it's not something that's very prominent at the age of whatever the year is, this year, that year. Now, during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's time, it was prominent. And the boys would receive their Upanayana, and they would begin their formal studies, etc., etc., etc. In ISKCON, Prabhupada didn't give us that emphasis. He gave us a different emphasis. The different emphasis was chanting Hare Krishna. Now, I'm sure you're familiar. Prabhupada writes, but didn't institutionalize it, that every boy by the age of 12 should be initiated. Now, that's not a practice that he institutionalized, although it's there in his Bhagavatam. So rather, it has become, but maybe by default or because he didn't give emphasis to it, that the emphasis instead is chanting Hare Krishna, becoming qualified to receive Brahminical initiation. And then it's not exactly, it's similar but not exactly the one-to-one correlation between Upanayana and Brahminical initiation. They're, in one sense they're identical, in the other sense they're not. The emphasis was then becoming qualified. And when one becomes qualified, then one can receive Gayatri and all of what Gayatri mantra is involved with. But it's fuzzy. Your question is, what's the prominence in Gaudiya Vaishnavism with Upanayana? That's your question. And it doesn't take the same prominence, even as during the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
So, Maharaj, one part of it is specifically Upanayana, but then in general, samskaras, as a whole, what role does samskaras and if you read, again, I'm referring to a specific book that I received from our mentor, Jagdanand Prabhu. And again, there's samskaras that are prescribed. And of course, those samskaras have value in terms of creating impressions.
And those that are fastidious Brahmins, meticulous Brahmins, the exceptional cream amongst the Vaishnavas, those sanskaras and all the other things that go along with being a very careful follower of Brahminical culture, they take on a greater prominence. And for the rest of us that aren't qualified like that, the emphasis is on the holy name as the principal means for purification anyways. For example, it's just like I just was thinking, Bhaktisiddhanta was given his Upanayana when he was 7. Along with the Upanayana, he was given a deity to worship. But, at the age of 7, he had memorized the entire Bhagavad Gita. So he's an exceptional personality. So their exceptional personalities, those procedures and sanskaras and everything that goes along, and everything else that goes along with it, it takes a special importance. It doesn't have the same emphasis for the rank and file or the masses of people. For persons that have a refined Brahminical capacity, it takes a greater importance. Now, amongst the sanskaras, there's some without listing them, but the Garbhadan sanskara Prabhupada gave prominence to. And others he didn't give, although they were observed, he didn't give the same prominence to them. Like the Upanayana is one of the sanskaras, but it was put in another position.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
It's a trick microphone. You have to do a cartwheel and then it'll turn on.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
There you go. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I heard that, Lord Krishna ordered Lord Shiva to appear in Kali Yuga as Shankaracharya and preach the impersonalism. So I wonder how come the Lord himself is trying to bewilder the jivas with a impersonalism which is not the highest understanding of the Supreme Lord. So I'm just curious.
Why creation? Why does the Supreme Lord make an arrangement for people? The answer is because the free will of living entity is reciprocated with. And this is one of them. Wanting to be the Supreme. Not wanting to be the servant. It was an antidote for Buddhism. So why Buddhism? People wanted it. the free will of the living entity is reciprocated with by the master. He doesn't want nirvisheshunyavadi, he wants the opposite. But living entities want misuse of free will, and so he facilitates. We have a magic microphone over here. And it works too, huh?
Guru Maharaj,
You didn't have to do a cartwheel. Go ahead.
even though we're in the Brahma Madhvacarya Sampradaya, our deity worship is closest to the Sri Sampradaya because it is given to us by Gopal Bhatta Goswami. There is a large time gap. Gopal Bhatta Goswami is quite close in time to us. So I'm wondering, especially after having visited these places with you.
After what?
After having visited these places with you last year and observing the deity worship there, it's quite different.
Oh, yeah.
So is it that the Gaudiya deity worship was closer to the Madhva line, since we are in that line, until Gopal Bhatta Goswami gave us the Pancharatrika Vidhi, procedures?
I'm looking at your husband's lines on his forehead going up and down as you're asking your question.
Oh, okay.
You have this discussion offline sometimes? No? Oh, okay. She asks you or you ask her? You weren't supposed to know that. Well, frankly, there's so much diversity out there. It's hard to answer your question. And the practices vary even within a particular line from place to place. Here's a little for example. For example, when I was taking my Ayurvedic treatment, there was a nearby temple of Nrsingadev. So when I went to see the deity, I expected to see a deity of Nrsingadev. But it wasn't a deity of Nrsingadev, it was a deity of Narayana. But they called the temple Nrsinga Temple. So the practice there is the Lord is worshipped, the Lord Narayana is worshipped according to the mood of the worshipper, and the Lord Narayana exhibits the mood in reciprocation with the mood of the worshipper. And therefore, the deity is identified as a Sankalpa Murti. Sankalpa, according to the intention of the worshipper, he reciprocates. And that's prevalent. Now, and in other places within the same state, down over there it's different, and over there it's different. So it's a little difficult answering your question, because the Udupi Krishna is Krishna. He's holding the items of Krishna as the cowherd boy, Gopal. And that's Madhva. And as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said when he visited Udupi, one good quality of the Tattvavadis is you accept the deity form of Krishna. But along with Krishna, there's no Radha. No, he's a cowherd boy, so maybe he doesn't have a girlfriend yet. Or like, in Ayodhya, the deity that was installed is Ramachandra as young boy. And there's no Sita by his side. Ayodhya. So there's diversity. During the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the worship was like Madhva, not specifically like the Ramanujacharya followers. That is to say, the Govinda deity was without a Radha. But the mood of Lord Chaitanya's followers was Radha. So then, you know the history, and there's Radha was manifest by the side of Govindaji, etc., etc., etc. But the previous was like Madhva's worship. Can you have, I'm looking at you, do you know where that sound is coming from? The machine that's chanting japa? Huh? The sound is coming from over there. Coming from here? Okay. Someone, one more question. Oh, two more questions. Amara, you got to have Amara give the microphone. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much for enlightening us with the life of this great personality. I was thinking that recently I was reading about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and like similar to his life, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was also praying for a ray of Vishnu.
Yes.
So time to time, many acharyas have come to, slash the whatever going against the principles. But still, those apasampradayas also remained. We see that now also, like Sakhi Beki and all those are there in Vrindavan. So my question is, are we to understand that their arrival in this world is a chance? I mean, it's just for us to understand. And they give mercy to some people, like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj initiated many disciples.
He used to do what?
He initiated various disciples.
Many.
Many, yeah, thousands. So is this, should we understand their coming to this world and still the apasampradayas being still present, that it's just, it's an opportunity for all those who can take something from their life. And they are showing mercy to many people by giving initiation, and so it's all about the free will choices.
All about the previous
Free will choices of people.
Yeah, but just a little editing in the context or the preamble of your question. Many exalted personalities gave their mercy without giving Diksha. So several times you repeated the number of disciples that he initiated. But giving mercy that's not the form of it. It isn't a prerequisite of the form of mercy. But the rest of your question is kind of restating what we all know. When mercy comes and persons are even oblivious to what mercy is, but somehow get in the way of that mercy, then the mercy expands. And the recipients of the mercy expands, and they can do with that mercy that they received whatever they do with it. But you're just restating what is a basic principle of disciplic succession. Sounds like.
Yeah,
Did I miss something?
No, Maharaj, yeah, it's
Okay.
pretty much that. But I was more like concerned, like with, like still the upper sampradayas are existing. So many.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, but
But at least there are persons who are, for example, compliments of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He identified them by name and the particulars of this one, the particulars of that one. And there can be new varieties of the ones that weren't part of those 13. But at least by a great acharya like Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the principle of Apa Sampradaya is now understood, and the features of some of them are now understood. And we can be cautious about what they might be. Okay?
Yeah.
You want to say something more?
It's a little different. It's just curiosity question, Maharaj, that in the beginning, Lord Parshuram went to the ocean to ask for a piece of land.
He didn't have to ask for anything, but that's what he did.
But he's asking land from the oceans.
That's right. Why not? He can do what he wants.
Okay. Thank you so much.
So the ocean withdrew and gave back some land. Here you go.
Yes.
No problem. Look, if you're facing Lord Parshuram's axe, you do what he says, right?
Thank you so much.
Okay. Yes.
Krishna Guru Maharaj. It's intriguing to
Speak louder.
It's intriguing to hear about Bhrigumuni taking
Go ahead. Keep speaking.
birth as Jara. He had committed an offense,
Yes,
so
big one.
he had to take birth as this hunter, and again he committed an offense in Krishna's pastime as well. Having tough time to understand that, Guru Maharaj.
Krishna gave him an opportunity to rectify himself. That's the punchline, or the bottom line, or the main message. Krishna knew, oh, my dear devotee, Bhrigu became a hunter. Let me go rescue him. Okay? You're not okay. Get okay, will you? Microphone stand is on strike. It's Krishna's. It's an exchange of love between Krishna and his dear devotee. So now she's smiling. She's okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.